Hi, this is Dr. Kara Stillen. We have a couple more left for neurodevelopmental disorders, and then we are finished with mental illness. So this is from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5, 5th edition. And this is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder tends to be diagnosed in childhood. If it is diagnosed in adulthood, it's been missed as a child. 66% of adults that had ADHD as a child grow out of it. There's only 33 or so percent that continue with it into adulthood. So what is ADHD? Well, it essentially is a problem with attention or focus. Um, we went from having ADD, but now we only have ADHD with that hyperactivity component because we figured out we used to define hyperactivity as just being kind of running around, climbing on things, but there's a hyperactivity component that can be in the mind as well. And so it affects how fast the brain works and not being able to slow that down. So that's also hyperactivity. And this is one of the reasons why girls tend to be much more underdiagnosed than boys because they tend to have more hyperactivity in the mind versus on the outside, running around, climbing on things and elsewhere. So these attention issues can interfere with a child's schoolwork, with friends. Maybe they can't stay on the same wavelength as their friends as long as they can. A lot of the times, because they don't pay attention, kids will automatically think they're stupid or dumb, and that's totally not the case. It's just an attention or a focus issue. It has nothing to do with their intellect, their cognition. So they're definitely not dumb, they're not stupid, they just have trouble sometimes not having their mind wander to different places, something that's more interesting to them. So an individual has to have 6 or more of the following symptoms in order to be diagnosed with ADHD. It can mean that they make really easy mistakes on their homework. Maybe they're whipping through that sucker too fast and they make simple mistakes that they know better. Keeping attention on what's going on is another one. Losing personal items, keys, wallet, jacket. They're always seeming, mittens in the wintertime, they're always seeming to lose something, even shoes sometimes. They can become easily distracted. They do not listen the first time when things are instructed, or if you're trying to call your kid and you're like, Kaylin, 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 and you say it 3 different times. I know this because I have a child with ADHD. Usually it takes about 3 to 4 times if they're not medicated to get their attention. They have trouble with following instructions, and then they have trouble with the details. If there's some small details in a project or on an assignment, they're often kind of breezed over or not looked at. So for anybody that has ADHD, it's really good to kind of go through those details and repeat those details a couple different times so the child knows this is important, this needs to be covered. And then they will forget appointments or forget being on time or visits, those types of things. It easily kind of drops out of their mind. So also along with that, they must have 6 of the following symptoms in relation to hyperactivity. They might have continuous kind of shaking of their leg while they're sitting there, or their arms or their hands. Something's kind of always moving. They might feel like they're driven by a motor, that they're constantly going and going and going. These are children that you have trouble getting to bed, getting to go down at night, because their mind is constantly going. If you put them down in bed, they're shifting back and forth, back and forth. They're very hard to get asleep, and sometimes when they finally get to sleep, they are out cold. So along with that, they may talk all the time, or they may be constantly playing with something when they're supposed to be sitting still. They tend to run and climb all over everything. They can interrupt a conversation. That's indicative of a mind that does not shut down, or leaving one seat quite a bit, needing to get up all the time. Now, somebody with ADHD, especially with children and females, have a really tough time organizing things or even cleaning. So if you've got a child that is just a disaster when it comes to cleaning, that is a symptom of that. Another symptom would be wetting the bed later and later in life. We don't know why that is. We don't know why children with ADHD tend to wet the bed for later ages, but that's also indicative. Their maturity takes a while for them to hit maturity. As my child puts his headphones on, thinking that the sound isn't coming through, but it obviously is. These symptoms tend to be present before, they have to be present essentially before the age of 12. And if they aren't and they catch it at 15, 16 years old, it's been missed in childhood. They're there. So they also need to be, the symptoms need to be present in more than one environment, meaning if it's at home, they need to see it at school, or grandparents need to see the same behaviors. There's got to be those same behaviors, not only at home, but somewhere else. Symptoms of ADHD are significant enough where they'll cause psychological distress, either for the child themselves or the caregiver or teacher that's there. So, or it's work, they'll distract people at work. The severity of the disorder needs to be highlighted, and some of the issues that the person has trouble with need to be noted by the mental health professional that's working with them. Individuals with ADHD also tend to be pretty impulsive, especially when they're younger. They might partake in risky behavior because of this impulsivity, and that makes it dangerous for them and their friends. A diagnosis tends to be made when a child enters school. The mindset is that when you enter school, now there's a lot of qualms about ADHD. A lot of people believe that it does not exist. It definitely exists. It is when you compare the child with other children in class, if they can't do those things that other children their age are doing, that's indicative of some sort of issue. If they're jumping up constantly from their seat, if they're trying to get this or get that, or sharpen their pencil or look in the mirror, like it just is like their mind just goes and goes and goes. And when that happens within a classroom, it's difficult because they should be able to do what a majority of their peers are doing. And sometimes without medication, they're not able to concentrate. They're not able to get to a level that other students are. I know there's a lot of anxiousness about the medication, but you also need to think about the consequences of not putting them on the medication. Are other children going to act certain ways to them because they can't sit still? And really important, if at all possible, to spend some time in the school with your child if your child is struggling with this. All right, so we talked about girls tending to have a misdiagnosis, the lack of organizations, and then the medication. They have non-stimulant medication for this too, so there's different kinds of medication if you do believe your child has ADHD. Otherwise, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to list them below. I'd be more than happy to answer anything I can. If I don't know the answer, I will of course find somebody that does and let you know. Otherwise, if you like the video, go ahead and click that like button and subscribe. I really appreciate all of you so very much. And thank you. And I will talk with you soon. Bye-bye.